Hello guys and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time visiting, please be sure to check out my other videos to see if any of them might help you out with a do-it-yourself repair. YouTube provides me with statistics that show only about 10% of my video views come from subscribers. It would really help out with YouTube's algorithm to promote my videos if you would just click subscribe below. It costs you nothing and I would appreciate the support. Let's get on to today's video. Alright guys, today we're back on the 2000 Honda Accord. Since I've done the rebuild, even before the rebuild, I had an oil leak coming from underneath my distributor, and it leaks down on top of the transmission and caused a really big mess before I pulled the engine and did the rebuild. Now, I made the mistake of assuming that there was a O-ring leak behind here. There is an O-ring that goes around the distributor shaft where it inserts into the head and then into the back of your cam. Replaced that when I did the rebuild. Came back, it was leaking again after the rebuild. Put my brain to it a little bit more, checked my VTEC solenoid in the back, which is another common place for a leak to occur there, and it was not coming from that. Cleaned everything up, come back, took another look a few days later, and determined that the leak was coming from between the distributor and the distributor cap, in between here, leaking down onto this piece of the wiring harness. So there's another seal that's inside of the distributor. It's going to be a little tougher to get to. What I'm going to have to do is take the distributor off, get it apart, and I'll show you the process for getting that seal buttoned up. No more leaks. Alright, again, the distributor, since it's coming out, I'm going to go ahead and pull the wires off of the cap. The firing order on this car is 1, 3, 4, 2. Keep that in mind for when you're ready to put this back together. Alright, with the distributor wires off, I'm ready to now pull the electrical connection for the distributor. Just squeeze and pull. Okay, with the electrical connections disconnected now, I'm ready to go ahead and take the two 12mm bolts out that hold the distributor against the head here. If you have an older car, your distributor may be adjustable where you set the timing with a timing light. That is not the case for this car. The distributor only bolts in one way. There's no way to turn it. The computer actually takes care of the engine timing. So I'm going to pull the 12mm bolt here, and there's a second one on the back side. Can't really see that when you have to feel for it. I tell you right now, when you get ready to pull that one, have your finger underneath it, ready to catch it. I guarantee you that one won't hit the ground if you drop it. There we go. Alright, before I pull the distributor, I am going to put a old t-shirt underneath it because oil is going to leak out. I'm going to try to prevent as much of that from hitting the ground as I can. Alright, this is ready to pull straight out now. One thing you need to keep in mind is when you take it out, you want to look at the rotor on the back and see where it's at and keep that in your mind, and I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to pull it straight out. And there's my rotor. You see this line on the bottom? You see that was pointed at like the I guess you'd say 4 o'clock position. Go ahead and get my towel in there a little closer, clean up that mess that's leaking out. Okay, we're looking in where the distributor actually goes into the head, and what you're looking at in the middle of the screen there is your back of your camshaft. And you can see the lines where the openings where the distributor fits in there. So I want to make sure that I get my distributor back in pointing in that direction with the line that I showed you pointed about the 4 o'clock position there. You can get that in there backwards if you try really hard. Your timing is going to be 180 degrees off and you're going to have a big problem. So just make sure you remember all this. Don't spin the engine over. Let everything sit where it's at. Okay, we'll move over to the distributor now and show you what my problem was. Alright, now looking at where my distributor actually goes into the cylinder head, you can see that there is a rubber O-ring here, and that was the part that I thought had failed and had caused my engine leak way back when. So when I rebuilt the engine, I replaced that part, and then, I don't know, Months later, I started noticing the car was dripping again. I got back under it and looked, and I was like, well, I must have put the wrong one in. So I went back, got a different one, replaced it, cleaned everything up, called it good. A few days later, it started dripping again. What I finally figured out was that the thing was not leaking from where it goes into the cylinder head. It was actually coming out from in between here and here. So there is a seal inside of the distributor way down here where the shaft goes in, that is actually allowing oil into the distributor, and it's leaking out there. So we're going to have to dismantle this thing. I've got the replacement part, and I'm going to show you what's going to go into that. All right, first thing we need to do is get the distributor cap off. You have these 3 bolts that hold that in. They have Phillips heads on them, but they're also a 7mm. I'm going to use that just to make it a little easier on myself. Alright, with those removed, we're ready to take the cap off. You can see down in here where the oil is actually getting into my distributor, and you do not want that to happen. Alright, now unfortunately all of this has to come apart. You have to take the rotor button off, all the different odds and ends. It's not too hard, you just have to remember where everything goes. So I'm just going to pay attention, go through this slowly, and take each piece off, starting with the rotor cap. And the rotor cap is also, again, has a Phillips head and is also an 8mm, so I'm just going to hit the easy button. I don't think see, that can only go in one way, so you don't have to worry about that putting it back in. Okay, so for the next part, all of this is going to have to come out. It's going to come with the shaft, so I'm going to disconnect it here. Alright, with those 2 bolts free, and they are the same size, this is now loose. We're going to turn my attention to this part here. 2 screws on top to hold that on. Alright, now I'm ready to go after the actual shaft here. It has these 2 screws that hold that in. Also, you want to keep up with your screws that you pull out of here. There's 3 different kinds. The ones that have the thicker washer here actually hold the shaft in. The shorter ones hold that part down, and then your longer ones hold this. So you can come back and check that again for reference if you need to. Alright, and just to get everything out of the way, I am going to take the seal off here, and then that just picks up out of your distributor housing. And the final step before we take the shaft out is we have to get this off of the end, and you can see it has a pin that runs through it, so I'm going to try to get that pressed out. With the setup I have right now, I don't have a good bench with a good vise to hold this, so what I'm going to do is just try to get arranged. I may not even film it, but I'm just going to tap that out through the other side, and I'm going to make sure that I mark. You see that line there? I'm going to put a mark and show where it coincides with the actual shaft, so I can put that back onto the right direction. Alright, you can see here I went ahead, I marked, put a piece of Sharpie down to show which side this was on, and then I went in with a drill bit that was about the same size, and I drove this pin that fits in there like that. You have to drive it out the other side. I do not have a good table and vise right now. I had a little bit of trouble with mine. If you have a good table, a good vise, you can get this secured a little better than I could, and it maybe go a little easier for you. So we're going to make sure we keep up with these parts. With that off, we're ready to flip it over and pull the drive or the shaft out of it. Now here is where our problem lies. You see that rubber seal in there? That is what's leaking. That's caused mine to come back, leak into the distributor cap itself. I've had a couple of, I wouldn't say misfires, but just kind of lazy starts. And I'm wondering if this might have something to do with it. So this is going to get changed out. I'm going to clean all this up really good and get it reinstalled, and hopefully we're going to be able to kill two birds with one stone. Get rid of that oil leak, and maybe some of those little lazy accelerations I feel from time to time will go away. All right, let's get that dug out. All right, I got the old seal dug out of that. This one was not chewed up that bad. I did that getting it out because I don't have a proper seal removal. But this is the replacement that I got for it. And you can see it's got like a flat side, and then this side that has the indention around it that goes all the way around. That goes down. So if you're looking into your distributor, the part that's open goes down. I'll put the part number up on the screen right now for this here, for the Honda part number. And I'll tell you this, I called the dealership and gave them that part number that I saw on a Honda bag, and they told me that they did not have it, that it wasn't even in their system. They dug a little deeper and they agreed that that part does exist, but they do not sell it because they don't consider this to be a serviceable part. So you get on eBay with the part number if you need to find one. That's where I found this one. It came pretty quick. We're going to try it out. Alright, before I install this new seal, one thing I do suggest you do is that you grease the outside of it very well. Anytime I put seals like this in, I want them to be good and greasy to help them go in so nothing rolls or does anything funky that I can't see behind it. So we're just going to go around it and maybe a little bit on the inside as well before we put the shaft back in. And once I get it started, I'm just going to go around with my thumb and just press the whole thing down to where it belongs. There we go, nice and flat, even all around, ready to put the shaft back into it. There is a bearing that is around the shaft, and when you get this down, you want to make sure that it's all the way seated where it belongs right here. All right, ready to turn this over. We're going to match up my mark. Goes with that line. So that's the way it's going to go on. And we're ready to put that pin back in. Once you get the pin started like that, then you're going to need to brace it and you're going to need to tap it back through. I'm going to do that now off camera. Alright, I've got the pin back in now. Let's just hope I never have to do that again, especially without having a bench. I'm going to hope this is right, nothing has to come back apart. Alright, with all this still out, I'm going to use a electric parts cleaner and go ahead and get all the oil I can off of this. That cannot be conducive to a properly running engine, have all this coated in oil. Alright, with those parts cleaned up, I'm ready to move them back into the distributor itself. Kind of get those where they belong. Alright. And we're ready to start putting our screws back in. Alright, and if you remember these ones that have the fat washers go around the shaft. The shorter ones without the fat washer hold this in. And finally, the longer ones that should be left hold this part in. Everything back tight, and don't forget to get these two here. Alright, and that is ready to go. I'm going to clean the cap out, reinstall my gasket, and we're going to be ready to put this back in the car. And last but not least, let's get my rotor back on. Remember, it only goes one way. And get our screw back in it here. Okay, looking back down, this is the position I need my distributor in. This line, remember, is going to be about in the 4 o'clock position. So we're just going to ease that in. There we go. We're going to reinstall those two 12mm nuts, get it plugged back in, and get our wires back on. Alright, with this back in, the two 12mm are tightened back down. Don't forget to plug in your distributor. I've done that before. Why is this thing not cranking? Alright, and if you forgot your firing order from a couple minutes ago, I got you, dog. 1342. This will be number 1 here. Three, 4, and last but not least 2. I always go around and double check, make sure that they're all pushed in as far as you can get them. Okay, I'm going to get that towel out of here, use some brake clean, and I'm going to clean the rest of that off of the top of the transmission and the wiring harness, so we can take a look at it in a couple days and make sure it's going to look dry as a bone. Alright, there you go, fired right up. First try, it means I got everything right. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to watch it the next couple of days. Got everything cleaned off the top of the transmission now, and check to make sure I don't have any further oil leaks. I know another place that it could be coming from, I've seen people comment, and I do know this, is the VTEC solenoid. It can either be the part that holds it against the head, or any other things that are attached to it can have failures and start to leak in that area as well. I've checked that, triple checked it. I'm sure that this was the right call based on where the oil was coming from between the distributor cap and the distributor body itself. So rather than spend the $200 or $300 on a new Honda distributor, I went on eBay, less than $5, got that seal, and just showed you how to replace it. Hopefully that'll help you guys out if you're having the same problem. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today, and thank you for watching.